The war begins. The sky over New Earth was dark, not with clouds, but with fire. Enemy ships burned through the atmosphere like falling stars. Alarms screamed across the cities. People ran, some crying, others holding weapons and shaking hands. Humanity had joined the Galactic Alliance only 5 years ago. They were still new, still small. Most aliens saw them as weak. But today, the galaxy would see something different. Captain Reeve stood on the roof of a command tower. His eyes watched the burning sky. He didn't flinch. He had seen worse. He had fought on Mars, on the moons of Juno, and even in the icy pits of Thorak 9. He had lost friends, brothers, even parts of himself. But he had never lost his will to fight. "Captain," a voice said behind him. It was Lieutenant Maya, young and brave, but her voice was shaking. "The Zerkai have broken through Sector 3. The defense lines are falling." Reeve nodded slowly. "Tell the men to hold. If we fall here, there's nothing between them and Earth." Maya hesitated. "Sir, with all due respect, we're outnumbered. Massively." "Good," Reeve said. "That means they won't expect what's coming." The Zerkai were feared across the galaxy. 10 feet tall, armored skin, forearms, no mercy. They destroyed entire planets. And now, they had come for the humans. The Alliance had told Reeve to retreat, to fall back and wait for reinforcements. Reeve had said no. He gathered his squad in a narrow valley just outside the ruins of the colony. They were only 20 soldiers, 20 against 200. But Reeve had a plan. He placed explosives under the old mining roads, buried them in snow and sand. He trained his team to strike, fast then vanish like ghosts. When the Zerkai marched through the valley, laughing and roaring, they didn't see the danger until it was too late. The first explosion took out the front line. Rocks and fire rained down. The second wave of humans attacked from the cliffs. Bullets, lasers, and blades moved like lightning. The Zerkai tried to regroup, but Reeve cut off their communication. It wasn't a battle. It was a trap. And the humans. They were the wolves. After hours of fighting, the valley was silent. Smoke floated through the air. Broken alien bodies lay in pieces. Blood, both blue and red, soaked the snow. Reeve walked through the battlefield, his armor scratched and blackened. He looked at each fallen comrade, then at the distant sky. "They'll send more," Maya said, standing beside him. Reeve nodded. "Let them." Miles away, on a dark ship hidden behind a broken moon, a figure watched a screen. His skin was silver and scaled, his eyes glowing gold. He wore no armor, only a long cloak made from the skin of past enemies. This was Cathar, the Blade King, one of the Zerkai's oldest champions, undefeated, unstoppable. His face did not show anger, only curiosity. He rewound the footage, watching Captain Reeve's face as he led the attack. "This human," Cathar said softly, "fights like a dying star. Bright, wild, desperate." A smaller alien, a servant, knelt beside him. "Shall we destroy him, Master?" Cathar smiled, a slow, sharp smile. "No," he said. "Let him live. I want to see what makes him bleed." Back on New Earth, Reeve looked up at the stars. He didn't know who was watching. He didn't know that. His name was now whispered across enemy ships. All he knew was this: war had begun, and he would not let it end with humanity's fall. He turned to his squad. "Rest while you can," he said. This was just the beginning. And somewhere, far away, a blade began to hunger. A blade in the shadows. The sky above was silent now. The smoke from the last battle had faded, but its smell still clung to every soldier's armor. Captain Reeve stood at the edge of a landing platform on Outpost Theta 9, a frozen moon far from any sun. Snow drifted slowly across the metal floor. The cold bit into skin like teeth. But Reeve didn't feel it. Not anymore. "We lost another scout team," Maya reported, her voice low. "No bodies, just gone." Reeve frowned. "No comms?" "Nothing. Like they were erased." He looked out into the dark white distance. The snow wasn't falling. It was watching. Something was out there. And it wasn't the cold. Hours earlier, 5 elite human scouts had entered the ice tunnels under the outpost. These tunnels were ancient, left behind by a species long extinct. They had weapons etched into stone, strange symbols that glowed faintly when touched. The scouts joked about ghosts, but their laughter didn't. Last first came the silence, then came the fear. One by one they vanished. No screams, no blood, just the sound of metal boots being dragged into darkness, and behind that darkness, something breathing. "I want those tunnels sealed," Reeve ordered. "Too late, sir," Maya said. Whatever is down there, it's already inside." Reeve turned sharply. "What do you mean?" She handed him a piece of torn armor. It belonged to one of the scouts. It was bent, sliced clean, not torn by claws or crushed by force. Cut, surgically, with something faster than a blade. "What could move that fast in a tunnel?" she whispered. Reeve said nothing, but he remembered something the Zerkai had said after the last battle. A whisper. A warning. He watches the strong. He walks through walls. His blade sings before it kills. Reeve clenched his fists. Cathar. That night, the lights in the outpost flickered. Cameras glitched. Heaters failed one by one. And in the far end of the base, soldiers reported hearing humming. A song, they said. Soft, cold, and sharp. A security officer, alone on night watch, followed the sound, down into the lower hangars. He found nothing at first, just darkness and his own echo. But then the song stopped, and something whispered in his ear. Too slow. His scream never reached the surface. Reeve couldn't sleep. He stood in the armory, staring at an old human sword hanging on the wall. It had belonged to his brother, lost years ago in the First Contact War. Reeve had always believed in strength, not just of weapons, but of the will. That's what made humans different. They didn't give up. Even when everything else said, they should. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the comm system. "Captain Reeve." His heart stopped. It wasn't a voice from his team. It wasn't a broadcast. It was inside his head. "I watched you dance in fire. I saw you fight in blood. But here, in the cold, let us see what your fear tastes like." Reeve grabbed his rifle and sprinted toward the lower levels. By the time Reeve reached the hangar, 4 more soldiers were gone. The room was freezing, the walls covered in strange markings and not human, not Zerkai, old, forgotten. Messages from a war lost to time. Reeve's breath fogged the air. And then, something moved. A shadow faster than thought stepped from the dark. Cathar. His armor was made of bone and steel, his face half covered by a cracked war mask, and in his hand, a sword so black it seemed to drink the light. Reeve raised his gun. But Cathar didn't move. "No," he said. "Not yet." Reeve fired anyway. The bullets never hit. Cathar vanished before they reached him, like smoke escaping fingers. Reeve heard him behind now. Right behind. But when he turned, nothing. "I could end you now," Cathar said softly. "But what fun is death without fear?" He left no footsteps, no scent, only a voice in the dark and a chill in the blood. Reeve felt something then, not pain, not anger, but doubt. He had never faced a ghost before. The next morning, 10 soldiers were missing, no trace, just their gear left behind, neatly stacked, as if they had taken it off themselves. Reeve sat in the command room staring at the frozen screen. "Why is he doing this?" Maya asked. Reeve's eyes narrowed. "He's not killing to win," he said. "He's studying us, testing me. He wants a real fight, and he's getting closer." In the final frame of the security footage, Reeve saw something new. A message carved into the wall by an invisible blade. "Run, human, the shadows are mine." And beneath it, in dripping red, "Next, I come for you." The challenge the war had changed shape. It was no longer fought in open battlefields or under burning skies. Now it lived in the shadows, in whispers, in cold sweat dripping down the backs of soldiers who no longer felt safe even when alone. Captain, Reeve knew it too well. He hadn't slept in 2 days, not from weakness, but because every time he closed his eyes, he saw the same thing, a black blade hanging in the air, and a voice saying, "Soon." He sat alone in the war chamber of the Alliance ship Valiant Wind orbiting a dead planet. The table around him was filled with generals, admirals, diplomats. None of them had seen what he'd seen. None of them had heard the blade sing in the dark. "This isn't war anymore," Reeve said coldly. "This is a hunt." "Then stop running," said Admiral Sarn, a blue-skinned Threxian from the High Council. "Face the one who stalks you. Accept the duel." Reeve looked up. "You mean the challenge?" Silence fell across the table. Across the galaxy, a message had arrived days earlier. No ship delivered it. No channel received it. And yet, every screen, every speaker, every corner of human space had heard it. A low, ancient voice that spoke across time. "Captain Reeve. Your fire burns bright, but the stars are watching. Meet me. Alone. No weapons, no army. Only you and your will. If you refuse, I will not kill you. I will kill those who follow you. One by one. Until you beg me to stop. Signed with only one word, Cathar." Reeve stood before the gathered crowd in the central square of New Earth's capital. Soldiers, civilians, even alien ambassadors had come to hear his answer. He looked into the camera, his voice steady, his scars catching the light. "To the one who hunts in shadows," Reeve said, "I have your answer." He paused. "I accept your challenge." And the galaxy held its breath. Reeve was taken to the ancient arena of Vexul, a forgotten world where champions of old fought for honor, survival, and legend. The planet was dead. No life, no sky, only rock and sand stained with old blood and old stories. As Reeve stepped out of the shuttle, he looked up at the 2 moons above. They didn't move. They only watched. Like the stars, like Cathar, he carried no weapon, no armor, just simple combat gear, and the weight of every human who had died before him. Before the duel, Reeve was taken into the Chamber of Silence, a stone room carved by alien hands centuries ago. In the center stood a pedestal, and on it was a sword, not a gun, not a laser, not even human. A blade made of alloy so dark it reflected nothing. A message carved beneath it. "One shall rise, one shall fall." Reeve reached for the blade. It was cold but not dead. It felt awake. And it whispered, not with words, but with memory, echoes of warriors who had held it before. But Reeve gripped it tightly and said, "I'm not like them. I'm human." The sword seemed to agree. Across the arena, Cathar waited. His armor had changed. It was lighter now, his cloak shorter, his sword longer, sharper, and his eyes, they burned brighter than before. He watched Reeve approach, and, for the first time, he smiled. "You came," Cathar said. "You asked," Reeve replied. "You're brave, human, or foolish. We don't see the difference." Cathar laughed, a deep sound like thunder underground. Then, silence. The arena began to shake. Not from machines, not from war, but from expectation. Galaxies away, millions watched the duel stream through encrypted channels. Soldiers stopped fighting. Diplomats paused mid-speech. Even the enemy held fire. The war paused for this moment. Then, it began. Reeve moved first. His blade clashed with Cathar's, sparks flying like dying stars. The sound echoed like drums, of gods. Reeve struck with speed, not strength. Cathar countered with power, not haste. Blow after blow, strike after strike. Reeve's arm bled. Cathar's mask cracked. Both smiled. It was more than a fight. It was a message. Cathar fought, to break a legend. Reeve fought to become one. Mid-duel, Cathar whispered. Do you know why I chose you? Because I hurt your pride? Reeve answered. No, Cathar said. Because you fight like you're already dead. Reeve's blade struck hard, pushing Cathar back. Then maybe you should be afraid of ghosts. Cathar roared and leapt, blade spinning. Reeve rolled, sliced upward, cutting across Cathar's chest. Blood poured, for the first time. Cathar was wounded. He stepped back. Surprised. Reeve didn't chase. He waited. Cathar nodded slowly. Good, he said. I hate easy kills. And then, like a storm, the second round began. Back on New Earth, people watched in silence. Some cried, some screamed, some simply whispered Reeve's name like a prayer. He wasn't just fighting for Earth. He was fighting for the right to be feared, to be respected, to be remembered. This wasn't just about survival. This was humanity's challenge to the stars. As the dust settled and the duel paused briefly, Cathar raised his blade once more and growled, You've come this far, human, but my blade hungers still. And Reeve. He wiped blood from his face and smiled. The arena of silence. No one spoke. Not the soldiers watching from orbit. Not the counselors gathered in their golden chambers. Not even the wind that drifted across the ancient stones of Vexul. The arena of silence lived up to its name. No cheering, no war cries, no machines, only two men breathing, two blades stained in blood, and 1,000 histories waiting for one to fall. Captain Reeve's heart pounded in his chest like war drums, not from fear, but focus. His hands ached, his arms were heavy. Sweat ran down his back, cutting through dust and blood like tears. Cathar's last strike had broken 3 ribs. Reeve could feel the bone shift every time he breathed, but he stood anyway. Across from him, Cathar grinned, blood on his lips, a long cut running from his shoulder to his waist. He didn't flinch. He didn't even bandage it. He simply turned his blade sideways and whispered something in a language older than memory. Reeve didn't understand the words, but he understood the meaning. This is not over. The arena itself was not built. It was carved. Forged into the bones of the planet by a race long dead, its walls held stories that no one remembered anymore. But the arena did. And now, it would. Remember this fight. The second round began without warning. Cathar lunged impossibly fast for someone his size. Reeve dodged, barely, then rolled beneath the next strike. The black blade scraped the stone beside him, slicing it open like paper. Sparks flew into the cold air. Reeve countered with a feint. A fake strike to the left, then a twist to the right. Cathar blocked it, but his grip faltered. Reeve struck again, driving his blade into Cathar's leg. The alien dropped to one knee. Reeve raised his sword, ready to end it. But Cathar vanished, no flash, no sound, just gone. Reeve turned sharply. Behind him, a whisper, too soon. A hand struck his chest, sending Reeve flying across the arena. He crashed into the stone, gasping, vision spinning. Cathar walked slowly toward him now, sword dragging behind him. Not rushing, not hunting. Enjoying. Back on New Earth. Children watched the duel in silence. On Mars, soldiers saluted the screen. In orbit, Reeve's crew watched with trembling fists, unable to help, unable to look away. He's buying time, Maya whispered to herself. He's studying Cathar's rhythm, waiting for a pattern. But Cathar had no pattern. He was chaos in armor. Reeve stood again, slow, painful. He spat blood. His fingers were numb. His legs barely moved. But he stood. You don't stop, Cathar said, almost amused. That's the point, Reeve replied. Humans don't know how to die quietly. Cathar raised his blade again, but this time, Reeve didn't fight back. Instead, he dropped his sword. Cathar hesitated. What is this? He growled. Reeve stepped forward, hands open. You've fought thousands of warriors, Reeve said. You've killed giants, crushed armies, but none of them made you question yourself. Cathar's eyes narrowed. Reeve continued. You've never faced someone who keeps getting up, someone who bleeds and breaks and still walks toward you. Cathar clenched his jaw. You seek to win with words? No, Reeve said, picking up a stone from the ground. I seek to remind you. This fight is not about blades. It's about belief. Cathar roared and charged, but this time Reeve was ready. He rolled under the swing, slammed the stone into Cathar's injured leg, then drove his blade, now reclaimed, deep into Cathar's side. Cathar stumbled, coughing. Blood spilled from his mouth. Reeve stepped back, panting. You fight like a god, he said, but I fight like a man with nothing left to lose. Cathar fell to one knee. The arena began to hum. Something ancient, something unseen. It wasn't a machine. It was the memory of battle, awakening. Every duel ever fought here left behind something, echoes, energy, emotion. And now, it was rising. The wind swirled, the ground pulsed, the air shimmered with unseen power. Cathar looked up at Reeve, face half covered in blood and dust, and for the first time, he looked afraid. Reeve pointed his blade at him. Yield, he said. Cathar stared long and hard. His pride shook, his legend cracked. Then, slowly, painfully, he rose to his feet and laughed, not in mockery, in respect. Not yet, human, he said. Not until one of us stops breathing. Reeve nodded once. So be it. As they circled each other again, the final round waiting to begin, the arena of silence whispered an old word to itself, not heard in millennia. Hope. And far above, watching from behind black stars, the galaxy leaned closer. Because this was no longer just a duel. This was the moment humanity challenged myth, and it was far from over. The broken blade darkness fell over the arena of silence. Not the gentle kind that follows sunset. This was the crushing dark of ancient places, of memory, and forgotten pain. Reeve couldn't move. His blade lay shattered at his feet, broken in two like the bones in his side. His breath was short, his vision blurry. Blood dripped from his jaw. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown to the end. Cathar stood above him, still breathing heavily. His left arm hung limp, shoulder torn. His chest was a mess of wounds. But his eyes burned brighter than ever. Reeve had won the last round. Barely. But now, he had nothing left. No weapon, no strength, no plan. A storm began to build above them. Unnatural, electric, swirling like a wound in the sky. The arena pulsed. It had sensed something. This duel had passed beyond blood and blade. It had entered the realm of legend. But now, one of them was beginning to break. Reeve stumbled backwards, one hand pressed to his side. Cathar didn't attack. He simply watched, not like a predator watching prey, but like a god watching a dying flame. You've come far, human, Cathar said quietly. You've bled, survived, struck true. I have never met a warrior like you. Reeve didn't respond, but Cathar's voice deepened, colder now. Every warrior breaks, every fire fades, and yours is dying. Cathar slowly reached behind his back and drew a second blade, one he had never used. Its edge was pure white, humming softly, not forged for battle, but for ending. You see this? He whispered. This sword is only drawn when it's time to finish something that should have never begun. Reeve looked up, coughing, spitting blood onto the stone. His broken blade lay beside him like a fallen comrade. But then the arena shifted, not physically, spiritually. Reeve felt it, a tremor deep inside the stone, a hum in his chest, like a second heartbeat, a memory. His brother's voice, his mother's, words, the screaming of soldiers on Juno, the laughter of his crew, the wide eyes of a child back on Earth saying, "Will we be okay?" Reeve blinked. No, he wasn't done. Not yet. Cathar stepped forward, blade ready. "I will give you an honorable death," he said. Quick, clean, no shame. Reeve raised his head slowly and smiled. Then you've never really fought a human before. He pushed himself to his feet, shaking, bleeding, breaking, but standing. Cathar paused. This was something even he didn't expect. We don't fight because we think we can win, Reeve said, voice raspy. We fight because no one else will. Cathar narrowed his eyes. Reeve picked up the broken half of his blade. He looked at it. This? He held it up. This isn't my weapon, it's just a piece of metal. He dropped it. I'm the weapon. Cathar lunged. Reeve caught him with a move that didn't come from any training manual. A human move. Messy, desperate, surprising. He rammed his elbow into Cathar's wounded shoulder, then used the alien's own momentum to bring him crashing into the stone wall. The white blade dropped from Cathar's hand. Reeve dove, grabbed it and held it to Cathar's throat, but he didn't strike, he didn't kill. Instead, he whispered, "Now you get it, don't you?" Cathar looked up, breathing hard, and said nothing, because he did get it. This wasn't just about strength, or honor, or even survival. It was about something older. Human will. Cathar's voice finally returned. "Why didn't you kill me?" he asked. Reeve stood over him, sword still at the alien's throat. "Because killing you ends the lesson." Cathar looked confused. "What lesson?" Reeve looked at the sky where stars now seemed to shine brighter. "That we may be smaller, newer, fragile. But if you come for Earth, if you come for any of us," he looked back down, "you'll never break us." The arena pulsed once more. Light filled the sky, and then, without sound, without warning, Reeve collapsed. His body finally gave in. He fell beside Cathar, unmoving. When he awoke, hours later, he was in a medical pod. The voice of Maya came through the comm. "You're alive," she said, relief in her voice. "Barely," Reeve whispered. "And Cathar?" Maya paused. "He's gone." But before he left a message, carved into the walls of the arena with his own blade. "I have fought 10,000 warriors across 100 worlds, but only one made me question my place in the galaxy. This human, this Reeve. He did not beat me with power, he broke me with will. And that is why they will rise." Reeve closed his eyes. The war wasn't over, but the galaxy had just learned something new. Humans don't need to win every battle. They just need to survive and keep getting back up. Rise of the human flame. The first fire didn't start on Earth. It started on a backwater mining colony named Lexus 9, a place most charts didn't even bother to label. A teenage girl, half-starved, watched the broadcast of Reeve's duel through a broken screen in a collapsed food depot. She had never heard of Captain Reeve before that day. But after watching him bleed and rise and bleed again, something inside her shifted. She lit a fire in front of the colony's flag. Not for warmth, for war. Within days the fire spread. Not of flames, but of belief. In 100 systems, workers refused alien overlords. Human slaves, once broken and quiet, began sharpening tools. Soldiers stationed on distant moons replayed Reeve's words like prayers. "We don't fight because we think we can win. We fight because no one else will." These weren't just words anymore. They were orders. Back on New Earth, Reeve sat in silence inside a med chamber. His body was barely holding together, stitched with machines and pain suppressors. But his mind was loud. He watched the uprisings grow. He saw flags rise on asteroid colonies where humans were once nothing more than property. He saw alien warlords begin to whisper the one thing they never said before: humans are dangerous. He didn't smile, because he knew what was coming next. Cathar may have disappeared, but the empire that forged him, the Zerkai Dominion, had not. They were watching. And now, they would come to crush this fire before it became a wildfire. And they did. They came with fleets, with bioships that could melt moons, with warriors bred in labs and trained from birth. The Alliance, it stepped back, afraid, divided. Only one force stood ready to fight: humans. But this time, they weren't alone. Reeves' message had reached further than he imagined. Across the stars, alien species long oppressed by the Zerkai began to rise, not because they loved humanity, but because humanity reminded them of something they'd lost. The will to fight back. On the swamp world of Celtrine, a race of four-eyed beings who hadn't picked up a weapon in generations began forging knives. Again. On the lava fields of Draconis, the molten-skinned Eldakar began chanting human battle songs, and on a derelict space station near the edge of known space, a rebel fleet painted their hulls with 4 words, "They will rise again." Reeve watched it all from orbit. The fire he started had turned into a storm, but he wasn't finished. "How's the armor?" he asked Maya, his second in command. She raised an eyebrow. "You're barely able to stand." "Then build it so I don't have to." Project Torchbearer began the next day, a prototype exosuit, bonded to the nervous system, built from scavenged alien tech, and designed for one purpose, to carry the flame. Reeve stepped into it 7 days later. Every nerve screamed, every scar lit up, his vision blurred. But he stood, stronger, taller, ready. The Zerkai struck Earth's outer colonies first, burned entire cities to dust, broadcast their victories across Alliance space. But they made a mistake. They left survivors, and those survivors carried a message. Tell them the flame still burns. Still. Reeve heard that message, and he answered. He launched the first counterstrike himself, alone. He dropped into the Zerkai's flagship without backup, without warning, and when he stepped out of the wreckage 3 hours later, carrying the commander's severed warhelm, he didn't speak. The galaxy did. The humans are coming. But the most powerful moment came not from battle. It came from a voice. Not Reeves, not a general's. A child. From a refugee ship. Orphaned by the war. Recorded. On a stolen comlink, she looked into the camera and whispered, "My name is Zara. I'm 5 years old, and I believe in that humans are never alone. Not when we have each other, not when we have fire. Captain Reeves showed us, so now, it's our turn." That clip reached more systems than any weapon ever could, and in its flutter, the human flame became a galaxy's roar. In the shadows of space, Cathar watched from an unmarked ship, his wounds still healing, his soul still shaken. He turned to the stars, voice quiet. "You were never meant to win, human." He closed his eyes. "But now, you were never meant to stop." War had changed, no longer cold, political, or controlled. Now, it was wild, personal, unrelenting, and at its center stood a single man, broken, burning, unbowed. Reeve had stopped being a soldier. He had become a symbol, and now the galaxy braced for what came next. The final blow. Final blow. The war had no front line now. Everywhere was the battlefield. Stars burned with fire not their own. Moons cracked under the weight of falling ships. Entire worlds shifted allegiance not through treaties, but through hope, and through it all, one name echoed like a war drum in the dark. Reeve. The Alliance command was failing. Their admirals argued in golden towers while colonies turned to ash. But Reeve wasn't waiting for orders anymore. He sat inside the warship Ember Crown, a human-built vessel now crewed by outcasts, rebels, and exiles from across 100 systems. Half of them had no training. None of them had fear. "We go for the throat," Reeve said, eyes locked on the screen showing the Zerkai Prime Fortress. Vault of Fire. A planet-sized ship, older than memory, guarded by 10,000 war beasts, shielded by suns, hidden behind the bones of crushed civilizations. Maya stood beside him. "You really think this ends today?" Reeve looked at her, voice like stone. "No." He stepped forward, strapping into the drop pod. "This ends now." Meanwhile, across the void, Cathar walked the halls of the vault. But something in him had changed. The scars from his duel with Reeve hadn't fully healed. Not on his body, not in his mind. Where once there had been certainty, now there was a question. A human question. What if I'm wrong? The final assault began at 0 hour, 12 human ships burst from warp space, each one already on fire. They didn't come to fight clean. They came to land and burn. Reeves' pod hit the vault's outer wall at impossible speed. The impact shattered bone, but the suit held. He rose from the crater with flames behind him, alone, and walking toward the core, through smoke, through blood, through legend. The vault was built for gods, hallways tall enough for titans, air that tasted like ancient steel and forgotten death. Reeve moved like a shadow of vengeance. Every Zerkai warrior that stood in his path fell, not because he was faster, but because he refused to stop. And they still expected surrender, in the heart of the vault. Cathar stood waiting. No army, no shield, no armor, just the black blade, and the last of his pride. "You came again," he said, voice heavy. Reeves' boots echoed across the stone. "You knew I would." Cathar nodded. "And you know how this ends." Reeves' jaw clenched. "Yes. This time, one of us stays down." The second duel began without a signal. No speeches, no honor, only the sound of blade against blade. Cathar fought harder than before, faster, like a dying storm trying to take everything with it. But Reeve was different now. He didn't fight with rage. He fought with memory. Every strike was a name, every block, a promise, every push forward, a whisper from someone he'd lost. "Keep going." Cathar's sword shattered first. Reeves' hands bled, but he didn't stop. He drove his blade into Cathar's chest, not deep enough to kill, just deep enough to end it. Cathar dropped to his knees. His voice was almost soft. "What are you?" Reeve crouched beside him. "Not a victor, a witness." "I'm human," he said. "And that means, even broken, we burn." Cathar looked to the sky above the vault, now cracked, burning, falling. "You'll never stop fighting, will you?" Reeve stood slowly. "Only when we have nothing left to protect." He turned away, and this time, Cathar did not follow. The vault fell within the hour. Reeve escaped with half a lung and 2 shattered ribs, but when he returned to Ember Crown, limping, barely alive, he found thousands waiting, not just humans. Eldakar, Threxians, Drakari, even, former Zerkai warriors kneeling. He had started as prey. Now, he had become the spark that turned the galaxy's fear into fire. Months later, the galaxy stood changed. The Alliance rewrote its charter, and at its center, a new pillar was carved in stone. This flame began with one man. He did not fight to conquer. He did not bleed for power. He bled so we'd remember who we could be. On a quiet mountain on Earth, Reeve sat alone, watching the stars. Maya approached. "They're calling it peace." Reeve didn't look away. "Peace is a pause, not an end." She sat beside him. "So, what now?" Reeve finally smiled. "Now we watch the stars." He paused. "And if anyone dares forget what we are," he stood. "We remind them." And far across the galaxy, in the void between suns, a single ember floated. Small, flickering, unbreakable, human.